FORTitude, Fort Worth.
Welcome back to FORTitude, everyone. JW, Brenton, you've probably seen him before a couple times. We got one of our buddies here in studio, the Captex Bank studio. Thank you, Markus Kypreos, for joining us on set. We are big fans of this guy. We've known him a few years at least.
Yeah.
He was nice enough to bring some booze. Our good sponsor, Mike Thomas, loves when we do booze segments. So, Mike Thomas, hope you appreciate this
Captex.
guy, because I'm sure you do.
Captex funds all the booze
companies. He's a heck of a
companies.
businessman, makes a heck of a product, but...
Look at all of it.
I know.
It's like, it's product
graciously
beyond
allowed
product.
us to have some on set, so thank you, Markus. We're honored to have you in our presence.
It would be rude of me to not bring alcohol. Everyone really expects it wherever I go, and I try to bring alcohol everywhere, except when I'm like, in those places like school or church or things of that nature. But
Right.
yes.
Do you? I'm guessing you drink on a regular basis, but is your drinking become more so prominent than when maybe in your previous life?
No, I really try and watch it just because of how often I'm at events or festivals or at the distillery or away from the distillery. It's always the job is all the time, right? It's 24/7.
Yeah.
So I'm really careful with it, and I think I actually drink less now.
Right.
Did you like set up a big boundary and going into it like that? Like, did you kind of have an idea from coming from the food background, like you got to be real careful with this, type of deal, or are you just good like that?
No, I didn't have the plan, but when I started, tasting barrels at 9 a.m. that were 120 proof, I was like, okay, we're going to have to set some boundaries here.
What's the B word you just said?
Boundaries,
I'm not
yes.
familiar.
Remember I mentioned that off air to you before? Well, anyway, Markus, we all went to Trinity Valley. That's where we first got to know him. He's a year younger than myself and a few years younger than Brenton. Brenton won't name exactly how many years that is. But
Thank you.
the guy, if you don't know who he is, you probably haven't been paying much attention, but he's obviously done really, really well with Blackland Distillery. It's a hell of an operation. But before we get into that, Markus, a graduate, he's a Fort Worth native, obviously, but a graduate of the Culinary School of Fort Worth, which is a really cool thing. He's also a sommelier. He's also he was an attorney for 15 years, which begs a lot of questions. I assume you had some large successes in the law practice. Why would one leave the law practice to accomplish this? What got in? What changed? Or how did the sequence of events happen?
People ask me all the time, and I always say it wasn't that I didn't dislike law. I liked being a lawyer. I was a trial attorney, so it was incredibly stressful, right? But I still enjoyed it, and I had the temperament for it. I've just always had a passion for food and wine, which was sort of the path that got me here. Every distiller is different. If you go talk to a distillery owner, there's no one way to get there because there's no major for distilling in college, right? And you see a lot of scientists, you see some lawyers, you see a lot of brewers who have gone into distilling. Right. There's no right way. But it just got me there because when I went to culinary school, and then I found wine, and part of the sommelier exam is distilled spirits, and then I went to some schools to learn how to make it. I saw it was very much like cooking because that's how we make alcohol to start. We take grain and we cook it. And it was just a natural flow for me. And I said, let's approach it from that point of view. And just built the distillery that way. And we try and do a lot of different things comparatively to other places, right? We have a lot of differentiators. So.
What was the sequence for you, Markus? Was it law school, attorney, then culinary school?
Yeah, I went to culinary school while I was practicing.
Okay.
I went at night.
Okay.
Yeah, so I graduated from the Culinary School of Fort Worth in 2010.
Okay.
Is that still there?
Yeah.
Wasn't it above like La Madeleine and
Yeah,
6330?
it
Is
was.
It still there?
No, they've moved farther down towards the circle.
Okay.
But we still work with them. We still do a lot with them.
Yeah.
I still love that place. I always tell people of all the schools I've gone to, everyone at some point should go to culinary school for general knowledge. You eat 3 times a day or however many you eat now, and it just opened my eyes to a whole new world.
Did you do that because you enjoyed cooking before, or because you were just like, man, we need some better meals around the house?
No, I did it because growing up, my mom worked for American Airlines, and so we would use those like D2 passes to fly standby, and we always traveled around food. So we would go to New
Okay.
York, and we would go to Napa, and we would go to these places, and I really fell in love with some amazing food and just became sort of a foodie.
Yeah.
But never did anything with it.
I thought you were going to say, like, we got this, all the airplane food, like my mom would bring it home. Like, she would bring the trays, and they were just so delicious the way that they had the meals. And
No. No.
Indeed.
props to American Airlines, local company.
Before
here.
we get into Blackland, tell us a little bit about the sommelier life. Well, I know your background, but for those who don't, I mean, that's a really interesting world because it's so rare for people to have that designation, but you obviously accomplished that. And you obviously, that's transitioned into other things in your life, but the sommelier part of your life, please give us a little bit of inkling of that.
So after I graduated from culinary school, that was just sort of the natural next step for me because you do so much food and wine pairing, right? And so it was about a year of just independent study for me because all you're really doing is going to sit for the exam and you take some courses and things, but it was a lot of knowledge, right? I mean, I would say after the bar exam, that was the second most difficult test I've taken, just in terms of all of the regions and grapes and varietal and everything, right? And I really did like wine, and I was getting into it, and I have strong opinions about it. But after I did that, I immediately jumped to distilling, and in that vein. And I don't think I've drank wine for like 4 years now,
Oh, really?
just because I'm just so focused on this, right?
Well, was it also easier because, you know, you're like, man, I'd have to go get a vineyard. Like if I wanted to produce it myself, I would have to do all these things rather than distilling. It's like I could do this right here at home kind of deal.
Yeah, and I think there's an opportunity for distilling, or at least I saw it when I started compared to other things. There's so many breweries. That's so complicated to me.
Yeah.
And there's so many wineries in California in particular.
Yeah.
And I just think it's very hard to make wine here, right? In the climate that we are with the grapes that we have. So that was
like 2 months of 100-degree heat is hard to make wine.
right, yes.
But there is a vineyard in every state in the U.S., strangely, even Texas.
I know, but Texas wine is not like it's real sweet, isn't it? Or something.
They have a couple that are good. I mean, we've had them. I know you know more than me, but there's definitely some here in Texas that can hold their own.
Here in the Metroplex, there's
Not
a lot.
Metroplex. It's probably South Texas and Austin way, maybe.
Yeah, I mean, I've heard people say that.
I think you did the right thing getting into distilling. Yeah.
I think people who bring grapes over from, say, France or South America and blend like that, you can do here, and I think a lot more people are doing it.
Right.
I've yet to taste anything that people have grown here in Texas and fermented and put in a barrel. And
Fair.
Okay.
Yeah. So where does the name Blackland? It's got such like an evil, like it kind of makes me think like Johnny Depp, like pirate kind of movie. Am I going the wrong way there, or is that what you intended for that?
Oh
to
no,
be?
not at all. But I like
Okay.
it.
You
It's
were intending
nice, yeah.
evil.
No, I wasn't.
Evil spirits.
I might start that though.
Yeah,
now.
yeah.
No. But I mean, you grew up here. I grew up here. We all
Yep.
grew up here. There are 7 ecoregions in Texas. We live in the Blackland Prairie, which runs north of Fort Worth down to San Antonio. I didn't even know that until later. And it got its name because hundreds of years ago, there were wildfires that caused the soil to be black and charred and gray, right? And so I liked the geographical connotation because we age whiskey in charred barrels.
Mm-hmm.
But I also like that it didn't necessarily say Texas, because what we're doing here is not Wild West cowboy per se, right? We always say to elevate craft a little bit more sophisticated. And as great as TX has done, and they caught fire and killed it, as they become a national brand, they've had I know a little bit of trouble like trying to go to Minnesota, because does someone in Minnesota really care about drinking TX whiskey or Texas whiskey per se, right?
Right.
It's good, but I thought Blackland could be ubiquitous and just everywhere and not have necessarily a geographical connotation for those that didn't know it. It's just, I like that Blackland bourbon.
Yeah. Yeah.
What's your reach now with Blackland?
We are in 9 states, and then the UK.
Oh, wow. Very nice.
Is it popular there?
Very, except we only distribute the Texas pecan brown sugar bourbon and the bourbon there.
So can you just do like a quick, like when you talk about the Texas pecan and brown sugar?
Yeah.
You putting that stuff in the barrel with, like, how's that work?
No, that's what I call a flavored or sugar whiskey. It's polarizing. It's divisive.
Good adjectives. Yes.
Yeah. It's why he didn't name it TX whiskey, because he was worried about what would happen politically with other people. I'm not buying that TX whiskey. Sorry. I guess I can't be saying that.
Well,
You can't, Britton, so please let our guests.
Whatever you think about Texas, good or bad, it has a distinct following and knowledge base around the world, right? And so that really grabs. And so, for instance, on that one, the Texas Pecan brown sugar bourbon, that's the last spirit we made. It is our number one seller. It's not even close. The irony, of course, is that it's my least favorite of the 5 that we make because it is sweet, but it's good, right? And the reason I made that is because I would go into liquor stores and I would watch people buy Screwball and Fireball and Crown Apple. And I said, okay, well, if the world wants sugar whiskey, then let's make a good sugar whiskey.
Yeah.
And just like we're trying to do with everything else, we're trying to elevate that. And
it's funny you bring that up, because I was just talking.
Hold on, Marcus, it's Britain time.
I was talking to a guy about, because I have a direct connotation, like a direct thing to this. We were talking about, like, back in the day what kind of cigarettes do you smoke?
Right.
You know, and it's like Marlboro Lights, and it's like, oh, that's for babies, you know. And now guys are like, big grown men are going in, give me the watermelon pumpkin spice Jewel. I'll take a couple cartridges of that. You know, I mean, it's just like we're in this fruit infused world, and everybody likes the sweeter stuff. They sell like Swisher Sweets or grape flavored cigars. I think that's kind of odd too.
We do like our flavors, no doubt.
And sugar. I mean, Fireball is the number 3 selling whiskey in the world.
Seriously?
Yeah. So we can make fun of that guy, but he's making fun of us on an island. So
Yeah. So what about in England? Is the palate different? You know, have you had to de-sugar, not as a sweet?
That was my initial thought, but no. Everyone loves sugar apparently now. This is the world that we live in.
JW doesn't. He's a diabetic.
Yes,
Right.
that's true.
So, yes.
Yeah, don't touch that.
Yeah.
Actually, I have, Marcus, and it's quite lovely.
Thank you. I appreciate it.
I went to the hospital after that for diabetic reasons, but
I mean, it is a very nice sugar whiskey, right? And to answer your original question, we take our bourbon and then we steep it in pecan and we add vanilla and muscovado sugar, which the sugar really for me makes it. And that's what you get.
Is it a special kind of sugar?
Yeah, the muscovado is a specific type of sugar that comes right off the sugar cane, so it tends to be a little bit sweeter and more confectionery, and they cook it a little bit. It's like a browner sugar like that, and we tried like 20 different iterations of sugar, and that was the one hands down.
So is it like everybody goes in the boardroom like, hey, we're going on a sugar hunt, you know, everybody goes and gets 5 sugar, like there's got to be research in it. You see the trend of the market, you know, and then
was it a sugar hunt, Marcus?
It's like everybody bring your canes in, see who's the best, you know.
Yeah,
and then this stuff takes time, right? So it's not like you can just. I think this will be a good idea. Let's wait 20 years and we'll find out, you know? So how does that all work?
Yes. I mean, it's not a sugar hunt. It's let's order some different sugars on Amazon and then we bring them in small batches and we flavor it. But it does take time. Like when you're just sweetening or adding sugar to or flavoring, that doesn't take as much time. But for instance, like the gin we did over 100 iterations of that because you have to distill and redistill and add. That took forever. We almost gave up on that.
Seriously?
Yeah.
Well, so Marcus, Blackland came to be in 2018, correct?
That's right.
So you put out vodka, gin, bourbon, rye, Texas pecan brown sugar bourbon, which you mentioned. You would have 100 proof bourbon, 100 proof rye, and a barrel rested gin as well. And there's a third.
Yes.
The newest one is on the table. It's the third one over from myself with the black top. That's coming out in January. You said, right? Can we talk about that, or is it still secret?
Oh no, we can talk about it.
I kind of just
did sit on the table, man.
Yeah,
I mean,
that is our fully created, if you will, cooked, fermented, distilled at the distillery since day one bourbon. So it'll be between 3 and 4 years old. We're calling it Prairie Gold. Mm-hmm. This will be our premium bourbon that we release. We're really excited about it just because there's not a ton of what we call straight Texas bourbon, great grain to glass out there. There's a few people. You have to understand the whiskey industry in Texas is super young. The oldest whiskey distillery here is 2008.
Oh, yeah.
So compare that to Kentucky.
How long?
Right. 1800s. And then compare that to Scotland and Ireland, right? So we're just very young and we're still figuring things out. And so to have our first like release of grain to glass straight bourbon is really exciting.
Is that good? I mean, are we becoming a region to reckon with, kind of like the wine stuff, or is it still yet to be determined?
We're going to get there.
Yeah.
I think the problem is that a lot of people compare Kentucky bourbon to Texas bourbon, and that will never, ever happen because it's the climate makes such a huge difference in all alcohol that you make. And so I think what you'll start to see is some really good Texas bourbons emerge as a distinct flavor. And then what you'll see, I think, is that you'll have a North Texas bourbon, a Central Texas, and a South, much like California, and, all the way down, Central Coast, South, and Napa. Because, again, the climate here in Fort Worth, or DFW, is much different than Austin, is much different than Houston.
Are other states doing it too? You don't hear about I had this wonderful Rhode Island bourbon, last night.
Yeah.
Or maybe is that, or we just, why here?
No, I think there's definitely it's a focus here, right? But also you have to understand, going back to my original point, distilling to get into is very difficult. The upfront cost and capital is huge comparatively to anything else.
What are we talking about?
A lot.
Like roundabout.
Millions.
For the machinery and all that, for the
surely
not just that, just also what you make you're going to sit on for 4 to 4 years, right? And you're just collecting and collecting. Is that an asset? Yeah, but are you generating revenue on it? No, you have to build the brand in the meantime, right? And so the barriers to entry on distilling are much higher, which again is why we don't have nearly as many distilleries compared to, say, breweries or even wineries in California. Yeah.
There's a gentleman that works with you named Ezra.
Yes.
Is his hand in all these things sitting in front of us?
Absolutely.
Can you tell us about Ezra Cox, please?
Yeah, Ezra's amazing. He's our master distiller. He's had a long career of both brewing and distilling. He and I are on the same page in terms of ideology and what we're trying to do and what we want to do, which is, again, we continue to say elevate craft and make quality spirits because there's so much competition now, right?
Yeah.
If you don't make great liquid, then it's over. And I don't even care if you have George Clooney or Ryan Reynolds, right? Because
who are they?
These are celebrities that own liquor companies that have done very well. But
tequila's got a lot of that Brad Pitt action and stuff.
Oh, sure. Yeah, The Rock, right? That tequila's very hot right now, maybe the hottest spirit. But if you're not making a good product, I don't care if you're Matthew McConaughey, right?
Yeah.
It doesn't matter because you can get anyone to try something once. It's will they come back and drink it again and again and again. So they may get that initial, I'd like to try that, but they won't have the brand loyalty if the liquid isn't good.
Right. Well, you're not a bad-looking dude, Marcus, so I think you kind of can sit on the same stage as those
that's
guys,
exactly.
So.
Yeah, that's
on
right.
that brand loyalty, I know I have a friend who's got a wife who works in one of the large retail places, the liquor stores, and he says that what they do is they've got all the products, they would have yours, but they'd only order a limited supply. So when you go in and they're out of it, they'll turn them on to, well, don't you want the Sam's brand kind of thing? So you have competition even in there. Maybe you can speak to that a little bit too in the distribution, because I'm sure there's challenges in that too as far as being profitable in this business.
Yeah, I mean, it's a dirty business, right? And remember that I was a lawyer before this too.
Yeah.
So, I know. It's a lot of
sue all your competition out of business if you need to.
It's just too costly. I'd like to sue a few of them, but no. It's just a lot of pay to play. Okay, which is what a lot of places want. Sure, I'll bring which is illegal by the way, but besides the fact it's a smaller, younger brand doesn't have money to spend thousands of dollars to get your bottle on a shelf somewhere.
Sure.
And it's not economically feasible either because people are coming in to buy Tito's and Jack Daniels anyways, right?
Yeah.
And then, yes, to your point, there are a lot of deals going on under the table where it's like, okay, we'll put your stuff on the shelf or we'll forget to bring it on the truck and offer them something else. That happens a lot.
Yeah,
right?
That's what I mean, because they get the huge margins on the base or the wholesale product or whatever.
Especially at restaurants, especially at
same
bars.
there.
Yeah.
Yeah, you don't really know what's going. I mean, unless you've got a real acquired taste to it. Yeah.
Yeah. Well, when I see the report that comes out each week where we have someone order something and they don't get it, that's really frustrating because we have a lot of product out there. And so then you have to go back and hunt it down, right?
Oh, right.
Where are
Yeah.
you seeing the most strength in your products? Is it bars? Is there any particular place, location, as far as
Yeah, it's a good question. So you have to divide the world into sort of two different areas. You do liquor stores, which is what's called off-premise, and you do bars, restaurants, hotels into what's called on-premise. It's much easier to get cases into liquor stores, right? Because they're there to make turn and make money,
Yeah,
and
yeah.
look great. Getting a bottle on the shelf in a restaurant or bar is hard. They have limited shelf space. They know what they're turning. They know what they want. They know what people want. So you have to employ a lot of people and personal time and go out there and hit the pavement. And then that's expensive,
Yeah.
right? But you have to build the brand in bars and restaurants.
Right.
So we've pretty much done a great job in Fort Worth and Dallas. That's our big market. Houston's number 2. And then you have Central Texas, which is its own place. And then, you know,
It's not weird enough, man.
when I go to Houston, everyone says, "Oh, that's great. I love that it's Texas made. We'll definitely bring it in."
Yeah.
When I go to Austin, they say, "But it's not made in Austin, right?" And they have a lot of distilleries there, and you know, and I went to UT, so both my parents went to UT. I love Austin,
Yeah.
but it's changes every year.
surely?
Yeah.
Surely. Well, on the side of this happening, you've also created an establishment here in town. It's a bar and it's a eatery of sorts. I mean, I don't what's the right word? It's a lounge.
Cocktail lounge.
You've
is
won
good.
awards. In 19, you were best cocktail lounge. You've won best date night spot, best lounge bar of the year. I mean, these are cool things. These are recent awards too from local publications. So I've been there several times, and the food's fantastic. You have a pretty good signature drink menu. I was going to ask you about that. Things like Dreamsicle Fudge, the Thurston Howell, and Bananarama. Like, who's doing these drinks? This is not an Ezra or a Marcus creation, is it? Is this somebody else doing these things?
No, it's the staff. Our GM is Warren, who for 8 years was at Thompson's, and now, and I try to give a lot of autonomy to whoever's running the tasting room because, and the staff in there too, because they like to create drinks, and that's incentive.
So these are your guys' brainchilds.
That's right, and
Okay.
we change it quarterly just based on seasonality and what's fresh, right? But you have to think of the bar, the cocktail lounge as marketing for the brand, because the business is distribution. So I want you to come in and have an amazing cocktail and an amazing experience, so that you'll leave and go buy Blackland at other places or at the liquor store. So I say sometimes, like, we cheat a little bit in that we fresh squeeze our juices daily and throw them out at night. We make all our bitters, we make all our liqueurs, we make everything there, and we have unique drinks so that it's an experience you can't get anywhere else. And so maybe the profit margin isn't as big as someplace else, but again, it's a long-term play of come in and enjoy. And Friday, Saturday is reservation only. Like, you have to have a reservation. We're not huge, and that's what I really like about it.
It's a rocking place, man. I
Thanks.
think you did a really good job there.
Where is it?
Just behind Montgomery Ward's
Yeah.
the little area down there.
Behind the Target.
Montgomery Ward's
Oh, yeah,
Plaza.
yeah.
Yeah.
Marcus, so you started in 18, but I don't know if this is good or bad, but you were right on the precursor to COVID. COVID, as most people generally know, alcohol sales and drinking took a skyrocket because we were all at home and this and that. Did COVID America help your business at that point?
In a couple ways. I think it hurt us on premise in bars and restaurants and hotels because a lot of them were shut down, right? So we got hurt there. It helped us get placements in liquor stores, to your point, where people were just drinking all the time. And then they kept drinking. They didn't stop drinking, as we've subsided. They've continued to drink.
Yeah.
So in that sense, it really helped wine and distilled spirits. It didn't really do a lot for beer.
Right.
Because beer's more like this fun, outside, festival,
Yeah.
sporting event, concert. And so they got hurt. And then, you have this seltzer that's come in, which I think is a fad and a trend, but that's where the industry's going. I think tequila's here to stay, no doubt. Like, that's hot.
Yeah.
It's only going to get hotter.
Are you looking at it?
No.
Not at all. So what's the graph look like per J-Dub's question, like pre-COVID, during COVID, and now out of COVID? What's the line graph look like?
Well, it's a
for
little interesting because, we didn't start distribution until September of 2019. So we've now been out what I call in the world for 3 years.
Yeah.
But since 2019, we've doubled our sales every year. So it looks like this.
Oh yeah.
But I don't know what. I never know. Like it'll happen again this year. Yes,
Yeah.
it will. But I don't know. At some point, that
But that's
stops.
annual, not like, so there may be dips in those
Oh, there are
years.
dips.
Yeah.
There are dips, especially you can look at the trends.
Yeah.
Like July is probably the worst month.
It's too hot or something?
It's too hot, and
Yeah.
people leave. They go to Colorado, especially here,
Yeah.
and they don't go out as much. You know.
We don't have any investors or important people who watch this show, so you can be as honest as you want about kind of future revenues.
Yeah. Well, I mean, now we're getting into it. It's really exciting because we call it OND, which is October, November, December.
Well, this is the good time.
This is the good time where you make a lot of your money now.
Yeah.
Right. Yeah. So holidays, drinking, parties, gifts.
Yep.
This is especially whiskeys.
Well, and I was thinking on the gift side, where do you guys get the bottle? Like, these are beautiful bottles. Is that like similar to the sugar hunt, where we're going to go on a bottle hunt and everyone's going to bring 5 bottles to the boardroom? And how does that all go down?
Oh, I hired a woman at the very beginning to design our bottles, and all she does is design bottles. That's her whole job.
Yeah.
And so, but where do we source our bottles from?
Or where was this taken conceptually from somewhere? Or
I told her what the idea was and what we were trying to do at the distillery, and this is what she came up with, and we instantly just
What do we call this woman? Does she have a name?
Yes.
a bottler.
Actually, a very interesting story about her. Her name is Una, and Una Hart. She lives in L.A. I saw her one night. I came home, and I saw her on a commercial. It was like a Revlon commercial.
Seriously?
And I called her and I said, "Hey, did I just see you on a commercial, or have I just been working too many hours or drinking too much? What's going on?" And she said, "Yes, I used to be a supermodel. I was in Eyes Wide Shut and some other films, but this is all I do now, and I just do it to keep my SAG card. But please don't tell anybody."
Wait a minute. So did you already do you know, like, she was your bottler or the designer?
Yeah.
Before, and then you saw the commercial?
Yeah. This was way after we had the bottles, and I thought,
Do they
That's
have
great.
like,
That's
where did you
great.
find out about her? From like an investor or something? Said, hey, you got to get this great
No,
gal?
one of the schools I went to, she had presented, and she
Yeah.
said packaging is important.
Yeah.
Here's why it's important. This is what we do if you're interested. You know.
Yeah.
Well, it's tremendously unique, and I congratulate you on that. That's for sure. That's really good. Before we get past the COVID days, I had one more
Yeah.
question for you, because one day, Brenton, my wife comes home. She's Miss Sanitizer. When the COVID happened, I can't go 2 feet in my house without her squirting sanitizer on me or somewhere near me. She brings home some Blackland Distillery sanitizer. He kind of revamped. I don't know exactly the
I
story.
think I remember this.
But
yeah.
you did a big thing here. You changed some level. You, instead of making all, I don't know the story, but
That's
you
right.
started making sanitizer and giving it out. I thought it was a really cool market. And one thing, we all know you and love you, but that was a pretty awesome thing you did.
Well, I appreciate that. In fairness, we sold it. We gave to a lot of charities, right? But then we sold it to the general public to try and keep some revenue going.
Right.
But yes, everyone needed it, from the homeless shelters, the night shelters, the Tarrant County Food Bank, to everywhere. So that was nice. It's funny because some people wouldn't take it. Well, one person, we tried to give it to Cook's Children's, and they were like, "It just smells too much like gin." And we were like,
really?
"Okay, yeah."
Does it? Would it have any of like sugar or anything in it?
Oh, we
Any,
put-
like
we-
to try to sweeten it.
Yeah, well, we put botanicals to try and mask it,
Yeah.
because we were just creating like ethanol, right? And
Sure.
it didn't have a great smell to it. So
You're
that's
using the equipment you have for the gin
Yeah,
to make it?
yeah,
Oh, wow.
that's right.
But you
Yeah.
step it up. Like, it's super high potency on that. Like the sanitizer. That
Oh
higher
yeah,
alcohol.
yeah. It had to be a
kinda-
higher alcohol
yeah.
proof. Yeah,
Yeah.
yeah. And we had to also tell people, like, don't drink it, even though it smells like this. You know, because
Yeah.
we had to put other things that the FDA mandates for cleaning and sanitation, and then yeah. So.
Did any come in this beautiful bottle?
No,
Like,
because
I love
again,
the
we
hand
didn't want
sanitizer.
we didn't want to
Good for
confuse
business.
That would be
anyone.
fantastic.
Yeah, other distilleries tried that in other states, and they had a problem.
Marcus, yeah, we know you're super busy these days. What, just generally speaking, what's a typical day look like for as a distiller? Like, somebody doesn't know this world. What does your typical day look like?
Well, for me, it's a lot of in the mornings, oversight, day-to-day operations to make sure production's on task, all the orders are in and out, and that we're making all of the alcohol, touching base with sales to see how we're doing, if I need to talk to anyone, touching base with our distributors, Southern Glazers, to make sure they don't need anything. A lot of calls on customers, our big customers, to make sure to thank them, and calls on new customers to say, hey, what can we do to get Blackland in here? And then a lot of events where I go to meet the maker who's me to talk about the brand, or just do some tastings. And that could be here in DFW, that could be in another city in Texas, that could be in another state. It's just nonstop.
Right.
Yeah.
What's the biggest trouble or issue you have to solve these days, if there is one?
Employees?
What's the hardest
Well,
part
I mean,
for you?
employees are always going to be, as you grow.
Like hard to get them?
Like drinking the product, probably. Right?
Yeah, that has happened a few times.
I'm
where
just
we-
sanitizing my hands in here.
It's definitely happened. No, I think it's gotten easier on employees, but
Yeah.
all employees have HR issues,
Mhm.
right? Everyone has an issue all the time. And so that takes time.
Yeah.
Um,
How to grow? Is that hard?
Yeah, how
in
to
this
grow.
business? Like, should we do it now or should we wait?
Yes.
Like, I got to see, you know?
yeah, you can't just go into a new state and
Mm-hmm.
put your alcohol on the shelf and go, okay, we're here. Come buy
Mm-hmm.
us.
We did that with our podcast.
That's right. Our moms love it, Marcus.
They're here. The boys have arrived.
Yes, that's right. That's right. When you enter a new state with a product, what's the action that needs to happen? Is it just a marketing ploy in that particular state?
In essence, we've kind of learned by default and doing it now over and over on what works and what doesn't work, right? Well, first you need a great distributor. And we do.
Yeah.
We have one in Southern Glazers, right? It's the largest distributor in the United States. They do Tito's and everything else.
How did you connect with them, if you mind me asking?
Well, we started with Benny Keith.
Okay.
And they're a great beer distributor.
Yeah.
And I love the people at Benny Keith. But then as we expanded and had proof of sales, the reality is there's two distributors in this country, and it's RNDC and it's Glazers, right? And the reality, unfortunately, is that they have all the connections and they have all the relationships. Because if you think about just like Total Wine, there's a wine buyer, there's a beer buyer, and there's a spirits buyer.
Sure.
You have to be in if you're selling spirits. And
Yeah.
so finally, we talked to both of them and we started getting attention. Then we just went with Glazers at that point. It felt right, and they also distribute TX, and they know Fort Worth and everywhere. And so we're actually with them in all of the states that we've expanded into, and they've been a great partner for us. So you have to have a great distributor. You have to have people on the ground. You have to go into the market and show that you care and connect. And you have to do marketing, and you have to do social media, and you have to have influencers, and you have to spend time there. You have to do it all, right? But the one good thing I've seen as we've grown is once you've established yourself in Texas, again, good or bad in Texas, it is a credibility builder in terms of when we went to Missouri, Total Wine there, I was like, we're going to turn you on, no problem. Or we go to Arizona and Total Wine says, absolutely, right there.
Yeah.
Whereas when I started, I had to beg to just get into one Total Wine, right? And so it does get easier over time.
No, and that's really good to hear. I mean, I do think there are such tremendous opportunities in this state because we have an influx of a lot of people coming in that you always hear about that. But that's really good to hear that you can go outside of here, and it gives you a little bit of credibility as well. That, it's like, oh, if you're in Texas, you've done it differently, you've succeeded, we'll take it,
Right.
Yeah.
Is the business, is it where you want it to be? Is where you expected this to be? Are you still satisfied with the growth, or do you have huge plans ahead of us? What can you tell us about that?
Oh, no, I still have huge plans to grow. I mean, I started this to be a national brand. I didn't want it to be a small local distillery or anything like that. And we've had a really quick expansion, I would say, for 3 years of where we are and where we want to be. Going back to one of the problems, this is a capital intensive business, right? I mean, to not only build the distillery, but then make all the alcohol and sit on it, then as you grow and scale, that's great. You're putting out more product out there into the world, but then you still have to buy the bottles and the labels and the tops and the raw materials for grain and yeast and all of it, right?
Yeah.
Yeah. So, again, it's not for the faint of heart.
Well, and then there's the marketing. So I was going to ask that too, is like, okay, product cost, if you've got a scale of 100%, how much is in marketing versus how much is in the actual production of the product? Because it seems that of all things, man, booze is like way marketing heavy, like
Super.
So,
this is a marketing business, right? Like this is 90% marketing. And when I don't care what you make, every brand is different. and what works for you in marketing is different. So
Yeah.
we've had to kind of hone in on that and figure out, I don't say we've wasted a lot of money, but you have to spend a lot of money to really dial in on what works for us. And so we have a great director of marketing and social media. Her name is Hannah LeCamp, and she kills it. And I'll just say for us, it's a lot of social media. It's a lot of social media ad, because your ROI and your return not only can be measured, it's just you're reaching a much wider audience. And, you know, radio is expensive.
Yeah.
Billboards are super expensive. And TV, you know. Whereas when my kids are right now are just watching YouTube anyway.
Yeah.
And you can target in on your audience that way and narrow it down for a lot less money. It's for us, it's hands down the best way.
Nice.
That's why we're going to charge you for as much as we are for this show.
Speaking of kids, where do you start your kids on the gin, the bourbon, the
Yeah.
how
The
old are your
clear
kids-
liquids
How
the
old are your
kids
kids,
like.
by the way, Marcus?
11 and 9.
Okay, so they're probably for just diving in now, sniffing, sipping. You know,
I mean,
most
They're
kids.
not the gold standard yet.
Yes.
They, unfortunately, they probably have a much broader knowledge of the distilled spirits industry than other 11 and 9-year-olds. You know, I see my, for example, one of my daughter's classmates the other day said, "Did you make wine today?" And my daughter immediately said, "We don't make wine. We make distilled spirits. Like, how dare you? How dare you even bring that up?" Right?
Yeah.
And
That is awesome.
Yeah.
So yeah, I'm a little worried about that. Like later on in high school, when someone says, you know, "Oh, they were drinking," my first question will always be, "Was it Blackland?" Because I don't want it to be, right. I'm concerned about that.
Sure.
Yeah. But they're my best salespeople. When we go out to a restaurant, if there's not Blackland on the shelf, they're going to let them know about it. And,
Yeah.
they're very, you know, aggressive about it, and that's great because I don't have to be.
Right. Sponsor all the
Sure.
kids' parties at school are sponsored. Yeah,
Sure.
it's a good deal.
Yeah.
So,
So you want to just state where people can find
Yeah.
you? I mean, and then we didn't give it an exact location of the eatery.
yeah, but tell us how people can find Blackland.
Well, I mean, we obviously have the tasting room behind Montgomery Plaza, behind the Target. But we're in every liquor store here, in DFW, certainly. We're in every Total Wine in Texas, every Specs, most Goody Goodies. We're in every city. It shouldn't be that difficult to find us in the liquor store category.
Can I ask about the big retailers
Oh,
like
yeah.
that? Is that hard? Like, do you go in and it's like one shot? Like, we're going to give you one sip, and then if we don't like it, like, how does that? Like, do they do that?
Yeah, it's hard.
Or do you get to go back multiple
Oh,
times?
you can go back. I mean, now, like, let's take Total Wine. There's 36 Total Wines in Texas. Okay, we're in all 5, or actually all 7 of our spirits are in all 36 Total Wines. That took me, till this year to do it. Right? It takes time.
Yeah.
Or I'll go to a bar and they'll have 3 of our spirits, and my daughter will say, "Well, why do they not have all 5?" And I have to remind her that Hendrix has 1 and Tito's has 1, and we have 3. So calm down.
Yeah.
Right?
Yeah.
Like, it's hard when you're
But
making...
I want you to all now, Daddy.
Right, exactly. But the difference for us is we're making and distributing 5 different spirits to try and hit a much wider group,
Yeah.
right? Because
Yeah.
stereotypically men gravitate towards whiskeys and women gravitate towards clear spirits, and certainly there's crossover. But if you only make 1, you're alienating a group of people that don't drink that. Also, what you drink at 20 is different than what you drink at 30 and 40
Yeah.
and 50. So we may not go as deep in one category, but we're trying to hit a bunch of different people. And it's really good also when we're selling into a bar or restaurant, because then we can, I have too much bourbon, but do you have any gin? No, we'll take the gin. Right?
Yeah.
So,
Yeah. Sure.
Well, Marcus, we appreciate you being here. We are big fans of you and what you've done with Blackland Distillery. It's a fantastic
you.
product. The bar, people go to the bar. It's the best place to hang out with your date. Unless you're Brenton, you probably don't need to go there too much. Maybe for a bite,
I
but
got
anyway,
my own places I go. You don't worry about that.
I am worried actually.
Not
but
past
yes,
9 o'clock.
that's
I'm
next
typically
episode.
in bed by
That's
then,
good.
Marcus.
That's
But
good.
thank you for being here, man.
Thank you.
We always ask our guests this question at the end.
good.
Besides your familial affairs, kids and wife, what is the best day of your whole life?
That kind of sounded weird, like your
know.
familial affairs.
Familial
like
affairs,
your
yes.
affairs is a weird word to put at the end.
One
of
thing
that.
we failed to mention, by the way, you just reminded me with that glare of yours, as this guy's mom used to be one of our teachers back in school, and
Yes.
I loved her.
Seriously?
Mrs. Kypreos was
What grade?
fantastic.
All of them. She was a
grades,
sub.
yes. She was a sub.
Oh, no kidding.
Yes.
And she was so much fun and so much a pleasure to be around. I still love this woman. She was great to be around.
But and you have a sister too. That she was McGee's age, right? My younger brother.
Yes. My sister's much more popular than me.
99.
Yes.
Yeah.
Yes. I
Same
am
grade.
always still to this day Lexi's brother.
Okay, now we've given you enough time to think about your questions.
Thank you. This is going to be like family aside and all of that. Because I went to UT and have grown up, I was at the,
we all know where this is going.
Yeah,
Okay.
I was at the Rose Bowl. It was the greatest thing ever. I cried. So I'll never see that game like that again.
Are you
I
serious?
cried at the Rose Bowl too, but it was not for the same
Yes,
team.
yes.
So,
Seriously?
Yes.
Yeah.
I would. Is that why these things are this color? Like this UT
No,
color is
no,
like this part
I try
of it?
not to really go out that much because, people are so particular about their teams and
Yeah,
all of this. You
yeah.
have to just sort of calm it down as I've gotten older. But that was nice for me.
Most people drink to forget. He drinks to remember. Yeah. So, well, Markus Kypreos, Blackland Distillery.
Thanks
thank you,
a
man.
ton.
This has
Yeah,
been
thanks
a lot.
for being
Thank you,
here.
Captex, for letting us have some booze on the stage for once. Appreciate you, Mike Thomas.
Yeah. Thanks. See you guys.
All right.
Thanks.
Out.
Appreciate it.